Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and everybody is trying to currently figure out which main do they want to play going into Shadowlands. The choice is quite hard because there's quite a lot of class changes that have been done, and some are actually awesome. There's a good chance you might be looking into your new main, probably for raiding, and you're trying to figure out something that won't get you kicked from pugs, or maybe it might be your first time to get into cutting edge raiding, and you're simply trying to figure out the best spec for you. Quite a lot of you guys ask me what are some of the best specs for any pieces of content, and in today's video we'll be taking a look at some of the more popular specs that a lot of people gravitate towards when it comes to raid testing so far on Shadowlands beta. Couple notes before we go on this video is primarily focused on DPS specs, so healers and tanks are not going to be presented in this video. I primarily want to take a look at DPS only. Second, the best advice when it comes to picking your class, in my opinion, is to play the playstyle you like, whether it has the damage, whether it's a meta spec, maybe it's off meta, or whatever it may be. Because sometimes Blizzard gives you damage, sometimes Blizzard can take it away. It's not a good idea to pick a class based on damage and performance, especially when it's early in the beta. Speaking of which, it is early beta, so damage can be adjusted and things can get nerfed. The classes I named on this list could be bottom tier by the time the game finally comes out. The way we figured out how to put these specs at the most popular list is thanks to Tiqqle. Link to his video where he took a look at a bunch of public logs of Castle Nathria to see which classes and specs are played the most. From his information and his spreadsheet, which you can find in his video linked down below, is how we calculated which specs are the most popular based on the amount of parses for each spec. I mean, there must be a reason why a lot of people are trying these specs out, whether they're going for the mythic raid testing or heroic, and these specs have the most amount of play in terms of log numbers. If you've done any kind of raiding in previous tiers, you'll know that being a melee in a raid tier can be competitive, as a lot of the spots for a raid will mostly go to the ranged, since ranged have an easier time sitting in safety DPSing at the boss from a distance. So the amount of melee on this list is going to be short. The first melee we'll be taking a look at is going to be the Havoc Demon Hunter. And of course, we are going to have Havoc Demon Hunters on this list. Yes, Demon Hunters, even with all the billions of nerfs that they've gotten so far in the Shadowlands beta testing, they're still looking like a must-have in majority of raids. I mean, the debuff they provide in order to make casters do more damage for 5%, it's huge. Even though the nerfs to Demon Hunters have been primarily from their survivability and the defensive side, the offensive output of Demon Hunters is actually still quite decent. Especially when it comes to the borrowed powers of Covenant abilities, Blizzard has been fairly generous with Demon Hunters and how much damage they output based on those qualities. So I don't think we'll be seeing the end of Demon Hunters anytime soon. However, I do think we'll probably see less of them in general, but in raids they still secure a very powerful debuff to provide to casters, as we mentioned before. Plus, Darkness is still a very decent cooldown. They have Ranged Interrupt, a Purge, and generally still decent survivability even with recent changes. Someone's got to play Demon Hunter, and I'm pretty sure a lot of players decided to give him a go for that same reason on the raid testing in the Shadowlands beta. The second spec that's slightly ahead in terms of the amount of people playing it is Sub Rogue, the final melee on this list. Sub-rogues have gotten a lot of wonderful changes, and with combination of some really strong legendaries, it looks like Blizzard is finally letting sub-rogues breathe for a little bit, becoming a very popular raid spec primarily for single target, but even doing fairly well in AoE as well. Not only is the playstyle a lot of fun, but rogues are also very survivable and can do mechanics easily, especially if it has to do something with immune magic damage or dodging physical attacks. Rogues definitely have the buttons to get them out of any tough situation. So the changes to the spec in terms of the baseline playstyle have been an improvement, but primarily the reason why this spec has been on the list so far, which is why we have so far in the title of this video, is because Sub Rogue has simply been performing better than the counterpart specs. But that is sometimes the life of a triple DPS class. Usually one of your specs is going to be immensely impressive within AoE or maybe even single target. So for now, Sub Rogues retains the crown until maybe further balancing might show its rear head. But overall, the spec has been very enjoyable and has awesome synergies with a variety of legendaries. Even if the spec was nerfed, I feel like the playstyle is worth the play. Next, we're going to have Balanced Druids on this list. Balanced Druids are going to be a core concept to every raid tier because of the ability of Innervate. And now that Blizzard is taking that ability off of the GCD, it will no longer stop balance druids from being able to perform their tasks, which is putting out a lot of damage. With a variety of changes happening to Boomies with the different legendaries and how different covenants function, and Blizzard trying to give them a little bit more better AoE damage from their Starfall, it looks like balance druids are going to maintain their relevancy going forward. Maybe in raids, but also probably in Mythic Pluses as well. It's most likely going to be not too different for majority of you guys when it comes to playing your Boomkin, minus a couple different legendaries and bonuses you can get with Covenant abilities, because they play very, very familiar and similar, and the Eclipse mechanic so far hasn't really been holding them back. Then we are going to have a Marksmanship Hunter. And if you've ever seen one of those bad boys over in the beta, if you ever get one of those in your Mythic Plus groups, you know just the amount of wreckage and damage they can perform all by themselves. But also within raid tier, quite a lot of players have been given Marksmanship Hunter a go, with a variety of different balance tunings that have happened to the spec going for Shadowlands beta. So far, majority of hunters in BFA have been playing Beast Mastery, but times are changing, and so far Marksmanship Hunter simply have had the relevant damage and the powerful playstyle to boot. There is a very powerful legendary combination right now for Marksmanship Hunter, which most likely will see some sort of tuning in the future, which allows them to have mad amounts of cleave, and combined with certain Covenant abilities, you have incredible damage put together. The spec is insanely strong for cleave damage as well, with Chimera Shot making a return but being used in a different way, where now Marksmanship Hunter can blast out a powerful version of Arcane Shot to 2 targets at once, especially if they're stacked close together. This added together with a variety of different talent changes and class changes for Marksmanship Hunter so far has made it very popular. But then again, it is a DPS spec in a class that has all 3 specs as a DPS, so the balance of damage and popularity may swing in either direction. Then we're going to have Shadow Priest, and Blizzard has done an incredible job with Shadow Priest so far. The rework Shadow Priests have gotten with Dalaran Plague making a comeback, while also trying to still marry the playstyle of the old school Shadow Priest with the voidy version that we all know, together a little bit more into something coherent. Overall, I think quite a lot of players have been pleased with where Shadow Priest has been going, at least for the most part, compared to some of the treatment they've gotten in BFA, reliant off of borrowed powers 24/7. So Shadow Priest stand better on their own 2 feet, but also the damage they've been putting out so far has been amazing, and the small little utilities they can bring as a priest with Mass Dispel, with being able to off-heal allies and sustain themselves, they actually are quite a competitor for some of the better DPS from ranged. They're also a ton of fun, so even if the spec got nerfed, I feel like a lot of people would still enjoy themselves. Frost Mages have found a very powerful legendary that allows them on Frozen Orb to get constant fingers of frost. So during your Frozen Orb setup, you're just spamming Ice Sense the whole time. Same legendary also allows their Frostbolt to reduce the cooldown of that legendary, allowing them to play around Frozen Orb as often as possible, which is incredibly impressive and amazing in Mythic Pluses, but also inside of raids. Now, mages have 2 specs that have been played with, Frost and Arcane, and where Arcane can shine pretty well in pure, to stand there, single targets with a high possibility of big burst, Frost Mages have a little bit more of that versatility. Again, it does limit them because of this legendary, as Blizzard tuning this legendary so far could make or break the spec, but so far quite a lot of players been getting into Frost and dropping Fire. And so far, out of all 3 specs of Mage, again, a class with 3 specs at all DPS, Frost Mages have found themselves to be recently really popular. Finally, we have ourselves Affliction Warlocks, and they're going to be at the top of this list as so many people are checking the spec out, whether you're doing Mythic kills, Mythic wipes, or Heroic kills. The spec has gone through quite a lot of changes, and it now has a fairly functional playstyle where it can do decent single target, but also great cleave. Recently though, the change to the Necrolord Covenant that made Affliction Warlocks giga strong with Drain Life has been nerfed, and quite heavily for Affliction Warlocks in particular, so that alone could dethrone them quite easily. But from the recent notes we have so far, they have been the most popular spec that's been played in Mythic Pluses as of currently. So thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Let me know which of these specs are you interested in checking out in Shadowlands. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in another video.